All right, you guys are live on YouTube now.
Morning, Colleen.
Good morning.
So far, it looks like a better FWT meeting. A question for Jen. Okay, Dale got on. Okay, that answers the question.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah. So Dale, are you not getting the links?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. You know, I don't know. I do not remember seeing it, but also our internet provider here just went through a big change in their filtering system. So I've been struggling for about 2 weeks to get the links and or getting emails. So I'm not saying that happened, but I don't think I deleted it. I just don't think I got it, but I'm not going to say that's a definitive either.
So maybe just check in that email stream that Dale's email address is in there for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, the link that you sent me this morning that had a whole stream of emails in it did not have the link in any of those emails. Or there wasn't an email to me that had that link on it.
Well, each participant will actually have their own link. So I resent them yesterday, and then I also resent it to you again today. So it might have gone to your junk mail or to your spam box.
And this is good because as I look at this, Dale, you are me, and I am me. That's pretty good. Okay, getting close.
It's not, I did not receive an email today, and it's not in my spam email either. So there's something going on.
So Dale, do you have Jen's email that you could just email from yours and make sure it's entered correctly?
I do have her email.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. If you don't mind shooting me an email, and that way I can verify that the email that I'm using is the correct one.
Yeah, I am. I got it. I'm getting on my call right now. So
We can hear you, Paul. Morning.
okay. Bye now. Yep. Bye.
Hey, everyone. So we're looking for Ray and Eric. Excuse me. And Who else? Lee. We'll give him just, there's Eric.
Hello, everybody.
Morning. Is Lee on there on Glasgow?
Yep, Lee's here.
Okay, great. Morning, Lee.
Morning. I haven't put my
Okay.
hearing in.
You're so far down there, Lee. You look really little.
Do I need to get closer so you can see me in all my splendor?
Well, I missed the expression on your face.
Well, I can do something different. This is the first time we've done it this way. Usually I look like the cow on TV. Your head's bigger than anything else, you know.
That's exactly why you should be closer.
All right, well, I'll move up someplace else then. I'm
Oh,
not gonna
wait.
take-
Tracking
Is
on.
that all right? Or do I
Now
need to
you're
get
zoomed
closer?
in. Okay, we're good. Well, I think we'll get rolling. I know Ray has some internet challenges up there. So hopefully we can watch for him if he's trying to get in. Yeah. So again, good morning, everybody, and welcome. To catch us up real quick, I figured I better say Merry Christmas, Happy. Okay. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Welcome to the 68th legislature. And welcome back to winter. I think it's coming again. So trust you're all doing well. So we're going to start as usual with member home reports. And so I think I'm going to just go around kind of clockwise as I see it. So we'll start with Drew.
Good morning. Thanks, Ed, for letting me start.
There you go.
Probably like a lot of you, the main thrust of my conversations have revolved around this year's legislature and all the things that are coming down. So just a lot of folks asking questions about, what you think, and obviously what I think and what I know are two different things. So I don't know much, just waiting to see how everything progresses. The one other conversation that I've had a few times when I start to talk to people and they are asking me about all these programs, whether that's block management or most recently I had a conversation about PALA, is where they can find the information, not necessarily about how to sign up for those, because I feel like that information is pretty easy to find, but information on how to access those, the folks that are already participating in those programs. And I don't have good answers for them. So, maybe that could be a topic of conversation down the road, Ed, is there a good centralized place for some of that information? I know from some of our previous conversations on here, not all the programs are actually advertised on who's participating, and there's reasons for that. So that was just something that came up that I thought was pretty interesting.
So question on that, Drew, do you mean the user? So the hunter, how to access?
Yeah, so I had one hunter reach out the other day, was asking about, because I had posted something about the PALA agreement, and they're like, well, hey, who's participating in this? How do I find out who the landowners are? I'd like to reach out and say thank you, or I'd like to take a drive and go see where that is, or different things like that. And I don't think that information is super accessible. And there's other things outside of us too, like there's old BLM easements that are just now popping up. So we're starting to see this, some of our things about being digital, we're starting to see some of this information pop up digitally. And so folks are just getting more engaged with some of the other programs outside of BMA.
Okay.
Other than that, I am good. Glad to be back on here with everybody.
Thanks, Drew. Rod, Mr. Paschke.
Pretty quiet in our neck of the woods. Kind of what Drew said too. People, not concerned, asking questions about the legislative session. A little concern out there about the $50,000 cap on block and the lack of management therefore. Is it really doing us any favors, doing the resource any favors? Which that's a whole different topic, but other than that, pretty quiet, that time of year. That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Rob. Looks like Dale.
Of course, the legislature has some people concerned and what's going on there, although it's been relatively quiet so far. The increase in non-resident licenses where that seems to have exploded the last few years has some people, I'm hearing some comments on that. I'm not hearing much about the elk plant. I think people in this part of the world are really more concerned about what's happening with mule deer and where the mule deer plan is going to go than they are with the elk plan. I have heard several ads on the radio, or did hear several ads for the access programs. That's been, again, it's been frequent. I've heard it frequently on the radio, so that message is getting out there. Finally, we have a group, and I don't know the name, but they're trying to promote access, and they had a fundraiser here a few weeks ago, and I think the idea was they were going to purchase some gifts to give away to participants in block management out in Region 7. I don't know exactly what they're intending to use those funds for, but I think that's what it was. And again, like the other people have said, it's pretty quiet right now. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Dale. Donna, morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it's like everybody else. Not too many red flags popping up with legislation just yet, and hopefully it will stay that way. I did go to elk management meeting put on by the Montana Outfitters and Guides Association. I thought they did an excellent job. A lot of different organizations were involved. The panelists were spread across from sportsmen to ranch owners to outfitters. So professional groups, and the panelists took on some pretty tough conversations. And some of those that really applied to block management was the respect to access, stricter enforcement, how cattle grazing does benefit the wildlife. And they really tried to start a dialogue to help with resolution and build relationships based. And they talked about based on respect and integrity, and coming together as a group. I won't say it was anything kumbaya-ish, but it was refreshing to be there and see people bouncing ideas off each other. So that was well worth my time, I felt.
Thanks, Donna. All right, Lee, I can see you now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
This is the second toughest winter we've had since I've been born, according to the Weather Service in Glasgow, which we've had one for a long time. And we got 3 feet of snow. It started about Halloween. So the last 3 weeks of hunting season was pretty sketchy around here. And there's been 2 or 3 stints of really cold weather. It made the game move around a bunch. And I don't know I was talking to a friend of mine up in southern Alberta, and he said he thought that there would probably be a 30% death loss in the mule deer up there just from the weather. And so we're far enough from Helena, Montana, that nobody puts the legislature on the radio. And so those of us that can't text and don't do computers and emails, we're in the best place in the world, because we don't hear anything about anything that's happening. So I've heard anything bad about anything. The PAL has been well received here from the people that have participated in it. And there's been a time or two somebody said something about the land trust deal, but it's kind of like an Airbnb for deer or antelope or pheasants or something. The antelope quarters are working. I saw the first antelope I've seen on the Milk River down here last week or two, they'd crossed Highway 2. They haven't got across the railroad yet, but they'd made it, they're figuring it out. And so, anyway, that's about it.
So I know you're a long ways from the legislature, but you haven't had any balloons fly over?
Well, I think I don't know why they didn't shoot it down over Jordan. They wouldn't have to fish it out of the water. I don't think it came over us. They probably couldn't have got into the Missouri Breaks to get it if they'd have shot it down over that, you know. But I can't imagine why they let it go so far before they had to get it out there and get the scuba divers to get it. They could have shot it down northeast Montana that is stuck out on the snowbank. Looks like the great frozen north up here.
Yep. Well, you do get some news then, so I'm glad of that. All right, thanks, Lee. Rich, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Just a few things here, I guess, in our neck of the woods, kind of mimicking what Lee said about the snow. It's been probably one of the worst that I've been in my 20 years back on the ranch in terms of just snow. And I shouldn't say worst, probably the best. It's just been hard on a lot of things. We hit our cat quota in the first 3 weeks it was open here. It continues to be a problem. Probably not so much I haven't had any depredation to livestock, but certainly the wildlife is taking a hit. I'm certain of that. Legislative session more so on water rights and property rights, things there. We've had a lot of deer in stack yards, probably more than I've ever had to do, put up fence around the stack yards. And unfortunately, since we don't allow public hunting, there's no support from FWP in terms of doing that. So we got to kind of deal with it ourselves. So we're dealing with that. Block management, a lot of people in my area are pretty, I guess I thought it would be something people would probably be I guess excited about, but everything that I'm hearing is that the landowners, they're not happy with it in the sense that they feel that it's going to be a lot of people coming, more so than we've had in the past. And it's basically going to incentivize, more people, more harvest in areas that need probably more management of wildlife. And so there's some, at least in my area, the Bear Paw, some disgruntled people about that being added there. Let's see, my out of state, we have some leases that we lease their property, and they're out of state landowners. They're pretty upset with this whole, cutting down out of state tags, the still thing with the, being able to get tags for the hunting on their land that they own here in Montana. That's kind of an issue there. I guess kind of following back to some of the stuff we saw this fall with hunting season, just a lot more people in this area, a lot more frustration with landowners and just being kind of bombarded, and then no enforcement. And the big thing was even communication between DNRC and FWP. It was kind of like, well, DNRC is like, well, that's their problem, and FWP's that's their problem. So there was some kind of frustration there. Let's see. I guess on a positive note, as we talk about technology and some of the stuff as far as this electronic, your tags and those types of things, Everett, you talk more about that, or you have kind of a better sense of that, but there is some positive feedback from hunters and having that ability to track things. And then possibly if they can understand it, that the recording of the information to use from a kind of science-based standpoint to find out where animals are short, where they're long, those types of things, and using the technology in that regard, that was I guess a positive note. So that's what I have to report. Thanks.
Thanks, Rich. Tierney, morning.
Good morning. Well, Rich had a lot to report. Not up here in this area, just visiting with people actually towards the end of this shoulder season. A lot of successful shoulder season hunts around here. Really, that's all around Billings area anyway, that a lot of people have been talking about, a lot of town people. So that was, I guess, good to hear on that end. But that's it.
All right. Thank you. Paul?
Good morning, everybody. I got just a couple things. Like Dale keeps talking about we need to do some improving on our mule deer management. techniques. It seems like Montana is way behind the curve on other states, and I think we need to step that up, and I think that's part of the PLPW's responsibility to get some feedback on that. I think it's also important that the PLPW gets involved in the season setting process that's going to start here probably this summer and move through the year, and then they'll set the new season setting regulations in February. So I think this is very important for the PLPW, because this is we're always dealing with the legislature, but we're not really looking into the actual season setting, because that's where a lot of this stuff can get fixed or changed or looked at. The other thing was I'm seeing a lot of ads for even a new land trust type company that's an Airbnb for hunting. It seems like they're getting more and more aggressive. I think that's going to be something we're going to be contending with in the future. Even I see some places that are looking for fishing spots too. So 3 different companies that I see out there that are doing that. This is going to step up, and I think it's going to affect maybe the block management or some of more of this access stuff. I'm hearing quite a bit of on the block management cap, especially in Region 7 over there. If we raise it to $50,000 cap, I think it could, actually open up some more type 1 block management areas, which I think are just destroying our mule deer, to be honest with you. And if we open it up and we get more of those people that just want to shoot as many deer as they can shoot, our deer numbers are not going to come back. So that's what I'm hearing out there. That's about all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Everett, good morning.
Hi, Ed, everybody else. Glad to see everybody today. Yeah, everybody's following legislative stuff, so of course I don't need to rehash that. The only other thing I think I might add is in other work that I do, I follow some of the commissions around the other states, and Washington and Colorado, I think, are both kind of concerning for sportsmen. With you have a commissioner on Washington's Fish and Wildlife Commission that basically wants to do away with the North American model and rewrite her own. And then Colorado's commission looks like it's going to be a majority of non-consumptive users now. And so you guys can kind of see the trickle-down effect that decisions would come from that. So imagine if our FWP commission were dealing with either one of those things, that'd be a huge thing. So I think it's good to be vigilant for all of us, but it's on the forefront of my mind right now. I've been dealing with that the past week or so. So I just wanted to kind of give everybody that little nugget, but good to see everybody today.
Thanks, Everett. Morning, Cindy.
Morning. How are you?
Great.
Good. I'm also looking at the legislature, and especially concerned about removing the marijuana tax that affects the habitat conditions. We use it for habitat, improving habitat. There was concern about the number of non-resident hunter licenses that went up, or hunters per se, but that whole FWP briefing went around the horn, and people could see the number on licensing and the total number of hunters, and it drew some comment. There's concern about CWD and brucellosis. In fact, the biologist here in Region 3 quelled a little bit on people's concern on a brucellosis probability for an elk, and it was not brucellosis that killed the elk. And there was also some concern that there's like form letters going around, people sign on the bottom that gets submitted to the legislature. There was intimation last summer that if you signed on to one of those like form letters that opposed something or supported something, that the FWP was more inclined to pay attention if it was an individual letter. So we just need to make sure that truly, just because you sign on to one of these form letters, that it doesn't mean that your voice isn't heard. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Cindy. I think Eric, you are the last to me. Morning.
Oh, hey, good morning, everybody. Up here in Region 6, the winter is significant. I expect that we are going to lose a fair number of deer and antelope just from what I've witnessed here. Concerns of the sportsmen are still over mule deer management or mismanagement or lack of management, whatever you'd like to call it. There is a little brief glimmer of hope, I guess, in limiting non-residents to a single doe license. That's something in the legislature right now that we should watch, be aware of, and I think support. It would also limit any non-resident who holds a tag to a maximum of 2 antlerless license. So I think that's a good thing. Other than that, not a whole lot going on up here, other than we're going to get cold again.
All right, thank you, Eric. Yeah, looks like winter's coming back. We have a local newscaster yesterday was wearing bright pink, I think, for Valentine's Day, a couple days late. Maybe it was Valentine's Day. Yesterday he was wearing a leopard skin, so go figure that. But he was talking about how it could be the biggest weather event in southwestern Montana this winter. So we'll see how that stacks up. All the pluses and minuses of the weather. Gotta have it. For my part, yeah, I won't repeat too much here. I've heard some about the Habitat Montana marijuana tax money issue, a fair bit of that. Heard some concerns about will we have to pick a weapon. Hear that more often than not, considering there's nothing actively going on there. Quite a bit with hunter education. There was a bill that looks to be coming, HB 243, I believe, by Representative Marler, and it will require in-class attendance for hunter education, and that's putting a new need for more hunter education instructors. And just to kind of catch you all up, through COVID, we didn't have to have a in-person class attendance. So there's been an attrition of hunter ed instructors, and they're trying to still assess what that status looks like. And so the director has called for a short council like us, but very quick council to reconnoiter hunter education. I know he's engaged with this council to a degree, and just kind of wants us to know that that's coming. So we're going to be looking at in-person requirements again in the future if that bill passes. So that's a pretty big one. And being involved in this area, I've seen a fair bit of natural attrition on the hunter ed instructor side, essentially aging out, where these guys and gals have been at it for decades, and their time's coming up. We just lost one here a couple weeks ago that's a long-term instructor, been a great person in this community, and I think it's kind of symbolic of that. So be thinking about how we can help promote hunter education instructors, since we all believe people need communication and education in this relationship question. So that's a biggie. And let's see. I think the other stuff that's been happening here a lot is, do you think they'll ever make 28 Nosler again? When are you going to have primers? So that's the daily question still in our world here in our store is, do you have any powder? Do you have any primers? Do you have 300 Winchester short magnum? So I can tell you all that gonna continue to be a bit messy. There's a lot of things changing in the ammunition manufacturing world for a lot of reasons. I don't have a crystal ball on how that's gonna look, but I do know the dynamic is changing rapidly. And my gut feeling is we're gonna see a better supply of normal, regular ammo pretty soon, but that's unless something big happens and it changes the focus of manufacturers once again. So, okay. Listening to everybody, it's kind of interesting because on one hand, we all recognize there's that issue of too much pressure on the resource. And on the other hand, there's people who want more access to the resource or more opportunity for the resource. It's interesting listening to the diversity that we have to figure out across this state in a productive manner, whether it's managing mule deer, reducing B8 tags or increasing B8 tags, or I wish there were more, there's too many. So this is where we are and why we're here. And it's just an interesting thing because we have it right here, well represented in this body of people. So that's a good thing. Couple reminders. So way back when we started in December a year ago, I need to just remind us all to, if you have an agenda item, which I would encourage you to do, or if you have requests to the department for information, please direct those through me to them. I don't want to screen it or anything like that. We want to get good free flowing ideas and needs coming through. But a lot of times, when we get a request that's real close to a meeting, it can't be answered for you. And particularly right now with the legislation happening and the demand on the department there. So if you do have some thoughts or you want for more information, we want to get that. We need it. First of all, consider, is it timely? Does it need to be right now? And include that in your request. Hey, I'd like this for the May meeting, or I'd like this as soon as possible. And the department will work with that for sure. And the other thing is sometimes a request you have might actually boil down to being a public records request. So it's a more formal request. So we have to look at those to handle them accordingly. So just so everybody's aware of that as a reminder. I guess that's it. Anything anybody have otherwise? Stephanie, anything on top?
I just want to recognize that we do have a couple staff members here. Travis is sitting in for Jason today. Jason's in Disney, so we have Travis here to be able to help answer some questions. And we also have Colleen joining us. She and Dean Walty, who's also on, will be doing a presentation here in a little bit on the Matador Ranch. And then also, we don't see them, but I will say that all of our regional access managers, or most of them, are also watching the YouTube stream. And they watch almost every meeting. They really, really enjoy hearing your thoughts and take them to heart. So just reminder that they're here too. And if you do have questions or concerns, they are listening and are happy to follow up if you have any specific questions that may be regional specific. So just friendly reminder that they're on and enjoy being a part of the meeting too.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for that reminder. And you certainly recognize you folks and appreciate the constant diligence you have for what you do and the heart that you put into it. We know these things are tricky and challenging. They're fun, interesting, and I'm sure the result of what you do shows, throughout the state. So I know everybody here really appreciates the efforts that you make every day. So thank you. Okay. So I think Stephanie's probably going to show us some shared screen here or something on our priorities. Is that right? So we did our ranking. We ran our ranking out, looking at what we want to prioritize for 2023. We began that discussion in December. And our goal here is to identify where we're going to head. We've got tentative meetings scheduled that we'll discuss later to bring those to the front. And I think a lot of what we just talked about in our opening reports are going to be involved in this directly. So this is what we put out, and we had 9 responses to it. And if I interpret correctly, block management and relationships are in the lead, correct?
That is correct. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So when you look at this, there were 9 responses, and like Ed said, block management did receive the highest response for a number 1 priority, followed by relationship building and enforcement. And then actually close behind, I would say it's a tie for between 3, corner crossing, enforcement, and relationship building. But then if you were to look down at how other folks ranked the other priorities, 2, 3, then it really does bring block, relationship building, and enforcement to the top 3.
So we've talked about block pretty constantly through our roughly year together. And my interpretation of this, and I think through our past year's work, and even the comments this morning, as we propose, that cap likely will succeed. And as we all know, that's not the end all to making block management an enhanced program or as a whole improved. So let's chew on that. So it appears we've already decided that block management is going to be our first proposal to delve into, or first priority. And what I think would be envisioned in that is the whole program, looking at the whole thing, a deep dive into it, and how to address some of the concerns that we see in it that have been stated over the last year. So I'd like to go around and have comments in that regard, and get everybody's input if that's what you see. So let's start again, I guess with Drew.
Hey, Ed, let me go last on this one, or middle.
All right. All right. All right. How about Eric?
Takes me a while to find my mute button. I think one of the things we need to look at with block management is creating a second tier or something. We need sideboards on before somebody can reach the $50,000 cap. I don't think it needs to be boot prints on the ground and overrunning a place to meet the $50,000 requirement. Assuming.
So am I hearing you in regards to block as a priority to work this program through deeply? Are you on board with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Rich?
Thanks, Ed. Yes, I'm on board with that. I think that, and I just maybe to mimic what Eric said, I think that we need to, when we do this, when we do block management, I think that there should be incentives for those that are doing a good job. If the objective is to, pay people more for having access, I don't think we want to set it up for, failure in the fact that we're doing a really piss poor job of managing wildlife.
Okay. Everett?
Ed, I hate to ask you to do this. Can you restate your question for me?
So in this ranking of priorities for our first priority for 2023, block management, what's your status on that?
Yeah, this past year we kind of did a deep dive, right, on all the different access programs. And I think we all kind of came to a consensus that we'd like to see something added to the block management program that would reward quality and stewardship. So I like that idea. And then I like the idea. I like that we're moving towards that $50,000 cap and trying to find some parity to what landowners can get for private access to their place. So I'm happy to see that. Honestly, I'd like to explore, kind of like what Eric was saying, if there's a different way to measure usage or find a different metric to measure than just hunter days, to see if there's something there that we can just, it's been around for a while. Maybe it's time to just kind of do a deep dive on that and see if there's something that we can do to better manage that access, or how we measure it and how we reward it.
Okay. Thank you. Donna.
There it is. Can't find that mute button. I'm 100% behind all this, but somehow I believe we need to help the landowner and the hunter to have better success on their properties. If there was a hunt coordinator on some of these properties, if they're getting the additional funding, or, people will drive a long ways and maybe study stuff on HuntX or Onyx or whatever it may be, but boots on the ground blindly leads to lack of success. So if there was a way that part of that funding was to get management to help with success to the hunter, and it would also help the landowner, making sure people were where they were supposed to be when they are hunting. So that's kind of my input on that.
Hey, thank you, Donna. Cindy?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. A little bit of a deep dive would probably help, because we can probably, with the landowner, figure out what best suits the land, what best suits the hunter. We can get a little bit closer, and I think it'll benefit both parties.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Dale.
I guess the one thing about block management is the 7 items that are listed, we probably have as much control, or maybe poor choice of words, but as much ability to influence this than we do almost anything else on the list. So with that being said, yeah, I think that needs to continue to be one of our focuses. The one thing I'm just continually concerned with is, as more and more people seem to gravitate towards public lands and block management, what's the impact on not just the block management properties, but the public lands and the private lands where people, allow access, and they all need to be kind of wrapped up, and we need to talk about them all as a group. And again, we have more control over the block management program, so that's probably where we need to focus our efforts. But we need to also look at the big picture of what's happening to hunting on all lands, and really related to the pressure that's on all lands. That's what I have.
Hey, thanks, Dale. Tyranny.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest concern, the block management. It's the most access to the land for people to use, but I do think the quality in some of these places that are going to get the most money is going to be an issue. And I don't know if it is. I think BLM does check, block management does, Fish Wildlife does check in with these landowners some, to see what it looks like. But I do think quality, when we start diving into block management, is an issue, and access to deer and, maybe elk too. But I think quality maybe is the biggest issue with block.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Paul?
Thank you. I agree with Eric and Everett and probably most everybody. There's got to be a better way of paying these landowners for just other than 100 days. I've always said that. I think we need to design or come up with a better reservation system, and stuff like that. And I think that would probably make it better for to improve the quality. If we have, we can restrict it somewhat, but then people don't, some of these type 1, they want as many people as they can get in there. So that kind of goes against, you're not looking at the resource or the quality there. So I don't know how we could do it. Maybe have, like Eric said, another tier, a different type 3, maybe type of management that we can elevate and have better quality on. I think we really got to look at the resource. We're basically, especially on deer, when we set up these block management areas, I don't think we're even beginning to look at the resources. And do we have enough by having 500, 100 days? Is that going to hurt the resource or not? And I think you look through the block management payments and stuff, and how many 100 days, it's astronomical. And I guess what are we going to do if we cut those back? Where are those people going to go? That's another question. I do think a hunt coordinator and somebody that can enforce the deal where if we do have a reservation plan or a program that if people are out there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of going in and out a little bit.
My internet's kind of weird here. Sorry. A hunt coordinator, did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, I just think a hunt coordinator would be able to enforce the people if they're supposed to be there or not. I think the other thing that might be pretty good would be to be able to let them enforce it and have people that if they're not supposed to be there. And then I think we could take a look at audit the program. Am I still breaking up? Am I still breaking up? I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with this. That's it.
Okay. Thanks,
Sorry.
Paul. That's all right. Let's see. We got Rod.
I agree with what a lot of people said. Most people, everybody, I guess. We need to put the management back into the block management, and it's not just managing the people, it's the resource. The more money we throw at this, the worse the resource is going to take it up, Jim. So do I agree that we should have another tier? Yes, 100%. But if we don't start doing something pretty soon, it's going to be a moot point. So yeah, I do agree that there needs to be some sideboards and need to be a deep dive into it, but we have to figure something else, protect them. That's all I got.
Okay, then I got Lee.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. There's no way to tell. You're so far away, I can't see. Anyway, what our experience with block management, and I think this is probably right what everybody's thinking about, but our ranch surrounds the Bitter Creek Wilderness Study Area. And this fall, we had a bunch of snowstorms and it pushed the deer all out of the Canadian Grasslands Park down in there. And there was guys walking out in there. You can't drive in there. And there's 75,000 acres in that thing. And there was a bunch of those young guys out there walking around, and they had to bone the meat to get it out of there. I don't know how in our situation, there's enough federal and state land And all we have is chunks that are that are out there that are usually on a roadway or something. And I don't know how people can come there any time of the year, 12 months out of the year, 365 days if they want to, and access that. And I don't know how you do it, guys, unless you're just talking about a thing that's all deeded where somebody has control over it. How do you manage it for the animals? There's no way really to do it that I can see of at least in our situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I think unless Ray has gotten on, I haven't seen Ray, but anybody see Ray out there? I can't see that. So if Ray's not on, then Drew, now you're last.
Okay. Lee actually brings up a really interesting point on the diversity of properties that we have and keeping that into consideration. So good point, Lee. Ed, just real quick to clarify, the director has discretion. I thought I remember either reading that or hearing that, but on the hunter per day price, is that correct?
Yeah, well, so that's going to be the next thing that comes around, Drew, is how that applies to the changing cap. So yeah, that's not a legislative issue. That is a issue for FWP to make a determination on. So yeah.
Right. Okay. And I mostly just wanted to make sure I had that correct in my head to clarify, so one of the things that I've been doing this winter is traveling, and not that I like to travel, but I've been now to Dallas for the Dallas Safari Club show. That's a big international expo in Dallas. I've been to the Wild Sheep Foundation, their major show in Reno. I most recently went to the Western Hunt Expo in Salt Lake, another 50,000 person show. Next week I'm going to SCI's convention in Nashville, and the reason to say that I'm going to these or been to these is that at every show that I've been to, our block management program is always a topic of discussion, and it's always praised, right? And those folks I'm talking to typically don't have the experiences that we have, or maybe the other insight, but it's always good to just remember that we are still the envy of all these conservation groups on how successful that program has been. So we definitely deserve, or the program deserves rather, for us to continue looking into it. So like a lot of folks said, looking at that hunter per day cap, does that change? Because we all agreed to lift that cap from 25 to 50. So how do we affect that, and how do we talk about quality versus quantity? Two very different things. A type 3 BMA is definitely a topic of discussion. And as we progress into the future and we talk about land trust and that digital model, how does a type 3 probably have a digital component to it? I also recently signed up for land trust as kind of a, just to be kind of a test dummy. We had talked about it a lot, and I thought, well, I'm going to sign up for it, but I went the agricultural route with it. So if anybody wants to go on a beekeeping tour, they can go find me on land trust. But just some additional pieces there. That's why I wanted to go last, Ed, just because I've done a lot of traveling this winter, and we are talked about a lot. And so there's lots of focus, not only in Montana on what we're doing here, but across the country with this BMA program.
Thanks, Drew. Eric, I see your hands up. Did you have an additional comment?
Yeah, back to Lee's point. What Lee pointed out is very valid. Up here in Region 6, there is not a single ranch here big enough to honestly house and grow one mule deer buck. And I think that's where we need to put a little heat on the department to get them to start managing the mule deer, because the cry to manage mule deer here in Region 6, every time I go to Glasgow or Malta, talk wildlife with anybody, that's the biggest complaint. And a lot of our residents, which is reflected in license sales, if you look at the chart of resident license sales in the state, they've decreased. And the main reason for that is our local people have quit hunting because they're sick and tired of all the pressure, all the Washington people, the lack of quality in our mule deer. So the only way that we're going to get anything accomplished is to put a little fire underneath FWP's feet and get them to start managing our mule deer biologically instead of managing them socially.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, so actually, Drew, I get to go last. You know, I think that this is really a great discussion because just the discussion we had there, really all I was looking at is, do we want to deal with this as a first priority in 2023? And because of all the discussion you just had and the ideas and input, you know, I do believe that we're on the right track to head in that direction. Yes, we looked at all of the access programs, and I believe we looked at them more in a broad suite. You know, what is their success and what do they involve? By doing this, what we would be saying is we're going to take a strong look into block management and then look at how we can improve on the success of block management. I'm more in the line, in my experience of block management, of what Drew's comments are. I primarily hunt in the West, but I do go over, I've hunted on at Brusette and had great experience there. And over here, a lot of the large landowners, they like the Type 1. I talk to them regularly. I know them personally, and they're very happy with their Type 1. And it actually accomplishes their purpose, and I have a good experience. So I know that in the eastern part of the state, it can be different. On any specific type of block management, it can be different. It's like everything else. I find great quality when I go east too. I've hunted on eastern large block managements that are reservation only, and I happen to really like that because it's, you know, it's monitored. You don't have people running over each other. Everybody's in communication, and it makes great sense. So I think all these things we can discuss through our experience and add that experience to the whole program. And it's been brought up a lot, you know, Donna in her comments about the MOGA meeting, there was a lot of good stuff chewed on there. And I made a lot of notes about it. And I really think with the people that have come together, there can be a lot of input to enhance the program. There's a lot of it that's not broken. And then there's some of it that is. And I think that's why we're having this conversation like this. Yeah, I see Lee. So I think we are all on the same page that we want to look at block management beyond just the cap and the 100-day payment, and look at what kind of ideas might come forward, you know, clearly in the regard of the management of the wildlife and the impact on the land resource. So I just kind of want to summarize it like that and make sure we're all in accord with that idea that we go forward in that way. So that's my 2 cents. I see Eric, you have your hand up again, and or is that from before?
Oh, that must be from before.
Okay, take your hand down, Eric.
I didn't know you had to do.
Paul, I see you got yours up.
I see Lee's got his hand up kind of too, but anyway, I'll go ahead and mine's real quick. And I kind of getting back to what Ed had said, the purpose of some landowners have a different purpose for doing what they do. They're a Type 1 or Type 2, but I'm pretty familiar with eastern Montana around Mouse City and stuff. And a lot of those landowners, their purpose is to not have any deer, to be honest with you. They don't want any to put up with them or elk. And so I think a lot of them get into Type 1 and encourage just as many people as they can. So that to me is not a good way to protect our resources. So I think that's something we got to keep. I keep harping on the resources, but a lot of those places, there's just nothing there. And so I think we have to look at that and the purpose of it. I think it's kind of unusual for us to sit there and pay by 100 days and, and not have any quality or any game on the place. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, Lee, were you jumping up and down with your hands there?
Yeah, but now, didn't we used to have a deal where it was 4 points or better? Somebody that's familiar with the spillway, across the spillway, wasn't there a deal where you couldn't shoot a mule deer under 4 points at one time down there? Can somebody illuminate me on that?
I can't.
And I don't think they do it any longer. And so what happened on our deal, our ranch is adjacent to the Glasgow Air Force Base when it was an air base, and there was no restrictions. It was federal range and state range, and everybody came and went. And when we got into block management, after it evolved into a deal where the travel plan affected how people could get there. Before that, they drove and looked on every point and drove around. It was just like a railroad. There was one right behind the next one going along. And when we put the travel plan in there, there were several of the old time hunters that had been hunting on our ranch forever came and said it was better then because they didn't have to worry about, if they were walked in there and were hunting, they didn't have to worry about somebody with a pickup or, somebody else chasing them out of there, chasing the deer out of there. And so I think what block management is an access issue more than anything else. And it's not, I guess it's unfortunate if it's not quality, but I don't know how we do it both ways, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, we're gonna post that as our #1 priority for 2023. And, I think last year we had very full agendas dealing with many different topics. And this year we can go in and take, for example, this topic and give it a very thorough look and not move to another agenda topic. I mean, we'll have other agenda items, but as a main focus until we've satisfied ourselves on this particular question. We all good on that accord? I'm gonna take it as a yes. I can see some thumbs up. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at that survey again. The second highest ranked would be relationship building. And clearly that's got to be within block management too. It's going to be interconnected. Some of you posted those comments, that these all evolve around each other. It's like technology. Surprisingly, technology kind of has the lowest ranking. On the other hand, we know how important it is. And I think technology, as it's already been brought up, is going to come into play pretty strongly in block management, at least in our discussions. So personally, that doesn't bother me that technology is low because I don't really believe it's low. It's going to come into those top priorities. If you're looking at relationship building potentially as the second, it's going to be part of relationship building. So let's just kind of have some open discussion for a bit here on these next priorities and talking about relationship building. Who would like to make a comment in regards to that particular priority to start it off? Is that you, Everett?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it, Ed. When I look at everything that we're dealing with, I think it boils down to relationship building. And so when we talk about one of the priorities for me, which I'd like to discuss, is corner crossing. And so that to me comes directly back to relationships and the dynamics at play there. And so I would really like to see more of relationship building, but I think it's going to filter into other aspects that we're going to want to talk about. And then when we look at the final product for the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Project and what that entails, I think that's going to go and touch on both of those things as well as enforcement and education. And so I love the idea that it's a priority for all of us. And I just think that I think it's going to inform on everything else that we do as well.
Okay, thanks, Everett. So essentially, you believe it's going to come naturally through whatever else we do.
Well,
and what we've begun.
Yeah, I do think so. But on the same breath, I would want to say I'd like for this to be the umbrella priority for everything that we do over the next year.
Okay. Who else? Can I pick on you, Donna?
Sure. I agree with Everett. Every aspect of all the things we're looking at should come back to how can this help with relationship building. And I just think it's kind of the umbrella we need to be working under on everything we look at within the program. And it's extremely important. I think we're at a good time right now because we're not the only ones looking at how to improve relationships. I think it's an overall feeling across Montana. At least I hope. I know some groups are really moving forward with it. So I think the timing's right. And I think we just need to keep that in mind whenever we discuss other topics.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Dale?
Definitely agree with what Donna and Everett had to say, particularly as it pertains as we work through all of these different topics. Relationship building is really going to be one of, almost everything we do is going to come back to how can we improve the relationships. However, I do think there are things that we can do, and the landowner stewardship program, and maybe beefing up some parts of Hunter Ed. That we've touched on that in the past. To recognize some of the issues that landowners have. All of that is important. One of the things I heard the other day, talking to a landowner out here that owns a huge piece of property, used to be in block management, is not anymore. He said, it seems that there's a lot of focus on the private landowners, which needs to continue. He said sometimes his belief was there also needs to be dialogue, or probably greater dialogue, with land management agencies and their people in terms of getting them, a little more in tune with addressing the issues that some of the landowners have, especially, so much of our land is mixed ownership. And again, we want to default to working with the private landowners, which will never be lost. That's so important. But let's not forget that there may be a role for us to play to promote that communication and relationship building between the public land agencies and the private landowners. Thanks.
Great point. Thank you, Dale. Paul, I see your hand.
Yes, I agree with Donna. I know Donna was at the MOGA convention, and we did have a lot of consensus and relationship building there with, the stock growers, the Farm Bureau, BHA, the Wildlife Federation. It was refreshing to see that for the first time, and it's been a long time coming. And I don't know if many of you know that we're MOGA and the Wildlife Federation, BHA, are bringing together, I think, bringing forward about 3 or 4 bills in as a consensus package. So I think this maybe the turning of the tide, we're going to start working together, and that'll be really refreshing.
Oh, is that a revelation?
A pleasant surprise.
Well, like you, having attended that, I had, again, a lot of notes on it. And, I think, as Donna mentioned, there is a lot of synergy there. And I think you're right, Donna, there's a moment to bring all that together and make the most of it. And that's one of the things that I put on as a kind of a priority for us. How do we interact with all of that? Because one group was brought together by the director specifically for elk management. One group came together from all the outdoor groups, MWF and DHA and others coming together to form the Elk Coalition. And then you have MOGA, and bringing that all together, as I see it, has been really fruitful in the course of less than a year to have those conversations. So I think you're right on the spot. There's just a great opportunity to bring that together more cohesively than the past and recognize the commonalities and the big common goals to it. So yeah, I did feel more like it was kumbaya to a degree. I mean, it was really good. And I don't mean that in the sense that it was light. It was seriously good. Yeah. So other discussion on how we put relationship building, as Everett suggested, is kind of, it's always the umbrella with which we kind of the primary part of everything that we look at. We already know that. Do we make it a line item priority to delve into, or do we let it be part of each of those discussions? What do you think? Any comment?
Tierney, I do think Everett's on the right track there, because education, I mean, if you go with education, that comes back to relationship building. When you start talking about respecting landowners, you respect the parking areas, you respect the access to it. And again, on most places that's throw this stuff into block management, if they see somebody out there respecting what they asked, it's part of their block management rules and stuff, they're, for the most part, they're going to help them bring their game back there if they see them out there tracking it. So all that stuff, the block maybe not corner crossing, but the education, relationship, enforcement, I think that all does. I think Everett's right when relationship does tie in with all that.
Okay. Does anybody disagree with that? Have a strong objection to that point of relationship building being just part of all the discussions we have and identifying it as it comes through that way? Being none. So then we jump to what a next priority would be. And the one that came before corner crossing would be enforcement. So do we want to rank enforcement next? Let's have some input on how PLPW would be involved with the issues around enforcement. So who has some comment on that? Let's start with Rich, just for the fun of it.
How about now? There we go.
There you go.
Thanks everybody. Yeah, no, thanks. I think the enforcement should be in there because I think it all ties together, much like the relationship building should be a part of all of it. Because it is a component with all of it. And every one of those topics, it probably has its own relationship building, topics with it that relate to it. So I was going to add, I think enforcement should be, just because I think it's kind of the base of where, a lot of this goes. You've got private landowners and you've got public land, and I think it all needs to be managed properly. And so I think enforcement's just a big part of it. And it sounded like the department was working more towards that with some more game wardens. But I was just going to add to it, and I think it could be a kind of part of the discussion, is that we keep kind of going back to this, biological or science-based in terms of management. And so as I think of enforcement, and in my opinion, the management of wildlife, and specifically then back to block management and these is, how can recreationalists, maybe document more of what they're doing out there, in terms of, if you're on a block management area, if you're out there, that's where the technology comes into play. At least we could find out some areas, because I think what Paul said is that there might be areas where maybe landowners really do want to get rid of a lot of animals, and that's more of an objective. Maybe that's even an objective for the area or something. And then you've got areas where animals have been so harvested so strongly with no management, it needs a rest. And so combining all that together with the use of technology and then enforcement to do that, with the FWB biologists and those types of things, to kind of look at these areas and make some assessments, put them on some type of, sorry to refer to my place, but like I said, we have a biologist, and we're going on 7 years with them, and it's nice for me to have my wildlife report each year and kind of look at how we're doing. And even though we've got a big chunk of state land right in the center of the ranch, is about 30,000 acres, and I can't force people to tell me what their harvest rates are, or what they're harvesting, whether it's a muley, a whitetail, a buck, a doe, but those are areas that maybe we can kind of start working towards to do this, because I think it is a management and enforcement issue together. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know if that's been helpful or not, but that's how I see it. I think it's important.
So Rich, I just put that kind of back on you. So you and I have talked about a few of the enforcement issues that you run into in your area.
Hook it directly here, but I need another plug-in.
And I guess
Hook my modem right into it.
I think we can hear you there, Paul. Would you like to see a direct look, so a specific topic look into enforcement by this council as one item? Looking for ideas on how to improve that particular issue and suggestions for. Yeah. Okay. Because as you said that, I thought about what Dale said about the landowner he talked with, and bringing, all the land agencies together to be involved in the whole picture, and to me that there isn't maybe as much strength there as there could be for landowners, and this whole connectivity between all the agencies. Not just in enforcement, but certainly in enforcement.
Yeah, and just to mimic that, I appreciate you bringing that kind of back to light, because I didn't really touch. I do think there's a huge role to play, and I've brought this up in some other settings where FWP, BLM, and DNRC, we really do, and we have a great administration there that I think there's a willingness to want to do that, because access is such a big issue. So I think tying that all together and bringing all those people together, and it's been done before, but I guess maybe just taking a very specific look, and maybe that's where PLPW can really, emphasize that. I strongly support that and feel that would be a benefit.
Okay. Some other comments on enforcement issues as a specific topic for us to delve into. Who would like to add in?
I'll take a shot.
Okay, Dale.
The enforcement issue is it's out there, it continues. As we talk about some of our concerns, enforcement is going to be a part of it. But I think we could spend an awful lot of time on enforcement where we're going to have very little influence. But at the same time, it would be appropriate in some of our discussions to make recommendations that, we need a better presence or we need more emphasis in a certain area. But I just don't know really how much we're going to be able to influence enforcement. And again, it's not that we sweep it under the rug and we don't talk about it. I just think it's our ability to influence that is going to be pretty limited. And again, it'll be a part of our discussions in some things. I just don't know that it needs to be something that's a focal area for us, because I think it will come around in the other discussions.
Okay. Everybody see your hand up?
Yeah, that was what Dale was talking was really what I was thinking. Because we made the recommendation that we need more FTE for enforcement, and there wasn't that recommendation from the department this year. And so I think it's important for us to talk about. I think it's important for us to realize that limitation. And so we might want to brainstorm how to essentially put together a PR plan for not only the department, but for all the state legislators to understand that this is a really big deal, and it doesn't need to be just written off as bigger government, but that there's a real specific reason. And so maybe some education to those who might make those decisions would be helpful. I just don't want it to take up a lot of our time and then again, not much happen from it.
Thank you, Everett. To just comment on both your and Dale's, the thing that comes to my mind is, so then the question is, what can we influence in this question? And to me, that's worth asking and delving into a little bit. What can we influence? One of the things that I made a note of at the MOGA convention was that the department create a rewards program for hunters for self-policing. And nobody's really ever talked about that I'm aware of, kind of like TIPMON or within TIPMON. So, that would be my question for us, is what can we consider that we might have an impact on, and not get into the things that we can't influence. So I see the director has jumped on and he has his hand raised. So Director Warsick.
Yeah,
welcome.
Thank you. And I really appreciate it. First of all, I thank everybody for being on here. It does warm my heart to listen to you all talk and the passion you all have with this. And it really is great. And I just really applaud you for all your work that you guys have done on this so far. In the enforcement aspect of it, to an extent, our hands are tied on what we can do for FTE and things like that. And we will continue to try to get them when we can. But, I think everybody's aware of the things we face. So to Ed's point, I was going to bring that up is how do we teach people to help police our own ranks? And this is right in with the education and everything else. And I really appreciate where you guys are heading with this education and relationship building and everything else. It's an umbrella that should guide us as we go forward and build these relationships to work together. And I'm really happy to see that the groups are coming together. When I put that 12-member working group together, I stayed away from having NGOs involved in there for a reason. And the reason was hoping that they would do exactly what they did, and bring their groups together and look at it and get more ideas out there. So I think this is the tide is changing. People are willing to work together. And like I've always said, if you're willing to talk together, you'll find out that you have more in common than you do apart. So I think you guys have been on the right track, and I just applaud you for everything you're doing. And I'm trying to watch about 3 different meetings at one time right now. We've got our budget going on and a bunch of other stuff too. And plus, grizzly bears in Yellowstone. So, I just, wanted to step in just a little bit. I'll be on later on, but thank you all for that. And I think you're on the right track. And I know enforcement's a hard nut to crack, but you will see a conscious effort from the department to work more with people, work more with landowners, work more with everybody else in the field. So I just wanted to know that. Any questions on me real quick?
Any questions? So I have one. How do you see interagency cooperation on enforcement or relation being improved upon or built on?
So I see that as a priority for this department. I have already talked to the new chief. We've had discussions, and just a simple case in point, there's actually, I don't know if it's gonna be a bill yet or not, but there was actually looking at a bill that we had to notify the local sheriffs if we put up a check station and do this. And that comes from previous bad blood we've had within different counties and different things. And with the new chief, our goal is to build those relationships and work with them on all kinds of stuff. And that's gonna go into the end of the federal agencies as well. We need to get out there, be seen and work. So him and the deputy chief are gonna be going around the state somewhat like I did last year to meet with different sheriffs and different organizations and talk about that. So that's one of the things we do want to work together on is bringing people into this and share resources. That makes sense.
All right, thank you, sir.
Anything else? I really appreciate it. I apologize for kind of jumping in and, lack of a better term, puking on you with a bunch of stuff and then having to leave, but any other questions or concerns?
Anything, you guys? Now's your shot.
I'll be back with you later on when we go over the legislative stuff. I'll try to listen in with Deb when we do that too, so.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Once again,
Thank you, Director.
participation and your dedication to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm not sure if we have any consensus or not on addressing the question of enforcement as one line item. So I guess I can't see everybody. I don't know if Steffi, can you see everybody? Okay, there we go. So other than those that are blacked out, so, oh, I see a hand by Dean. Is that old or a hand up? Dean, did you have a comment or question that I missed? Maybe not. Sorry about that. No? Okay, so let's just do a thumbs up on, do we put the question of enforcement and how we might chew on that and come up with any ideas? We put that as a line item on one of our meetings in this year. So that's between now and July 31. Thumbs up or down? Okay, wait, you gotta keep those up there. Trying to tabulate this. So I got 1, 2.
My thumb won't go up or down, but I'm with Dale.
I think you're with Dale. I think we have 8. Okay, you gotta put them back up. Sorry. Eric, are you a thumbs up or down or even?
Well, I'm a thumbs down.
Okay. Cindy?
I'm a down. I think it'll become a part of our other discussions, except for like things like hats and stuff like that. And there'll
1,
be
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're not gonna do it. As I totaled that. So if something comes up and you want to, you'll have to bring it up. We won't delve into it in specifically. Okay. All right. So then the next item, we got about 5 minutes left in this discussion before FWP updates. So the next item on the survey that came up, I believe, was the question of corner crossing. I believe, Stephanie. Is that correct? Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yes, it is corner crossing.
Okay. And do you need to update us on anything we're missing up to this?
I do not think so. I think that we're looking good.
Okay. So everybody ready to jump to corner crossing? Oh, I'm just kidding. Everett, now both you and Rod smiled, so that was good. All right. So the question is, do we want to bring corner crossing as a topic in the next couple meetings after block management? So let's open up discussion. Dale?
I think it's something we should consider. And right now, after what has happened in Wyoming, I think there's a fear that the legislature is going to do something about corner crossings in the state. And whether they address it this legislative session or the next, and I have not seen anything in the draft bills that are suggesting they are going to do anything. But I think as a council, we could potentially come up with some options utilizing, what are the public, access land agreements, either PALA or something else, access to public lands or whatever. I would like to have it on the list to discuss at some point in time. It may not be critical today, but it will be an issue down the road.
Thanks, Dale. Who's next? Who would like to consider this question? Everett?
Yeah, I was the one that suggested it. It's probably in the highest level of priorities for me to discuss, given the current climate, not only Montana but around Montana, and again, I come back to, this is kind of why PLPW was created, to discuss issues like this that are difficult, that are sticky, that require relationships and trust and understanding from each other to even be able to talk about. And I feel like the past year we've done a lot of great work and we've been able to have conversations like that. And so if we don't have these types of conversations, I don't know where they're going to take place. And coming back to the idea of relationships, I would like to do more to further that and strengthen them. And if it's not done in a collaborative manner, I feel like one side's going to have a big stick hitting another side. And to be honest, I don't know which side is which at this point. But I feel like this is one of those issues that that is really timely and really kind of tailored for our discussions. So that's my pitch.
Okay. Cindy.
I agree with the above. I do agree that we have to have a discussion on corner crossings. We might as well have it early before it runs us over.
Okay. Paula, see your hand up.
Well, I think it's going to be a crucial issue down the road. I think what we should do is probably wait until the case out of Wyoming is resolved before we jump into it, because that's going to make all the difference. I think we ought to just wait. If we want to bring it up later in the year or even next year, I think that's the time to do it. Right now, I think we can probably talk all till the cows come home, and until that ruling comes out of Wyoming, we won't really have any basis to make any decisions.
Let's see.
I'll just
Eric?
hop in, Ed. I got my mute off.
Okay, sorry.
Again, to Everett's point and then some other folks pointing out, I think getting ahead of the issue, and we're not even getting ahead at this point, right? It's obviously being discussed and been discussed. I think waiting for a decision would be just kind of sticking our heads in the sand and hoping the problem goes away. So I think we can have a constructive conversation on what it is, so that we just have a really good base of knowledge, so that when it does become, when it does bubble up to the surface even more, we're all fairly knowledgeable, and we can speak to it really well, and have have a really constructive conversation, and maybe bring forth some ideas that might help lawmakers or the NGOs or all these different groups involved. So I think having a conversation about it now is important.
Okay. Next. About tyranny.
I'm in the middle, I would say. I agree that it'll be interesting to see what happens out of that case. And I mean, we can talk about it, but I don't know what it's going to do until we see something come in front of us, I suppose. And maybe that will be too late, but it's still going to be a heated discussion either way.
Okay. Rod?
I agree with, well, a lot of people. I do think it needs to be addressed, but obviously this is going to be decided in the highest courts, and whether we have any influence on that, I will agree with Drew. It does need to be discussed, but I don't know how much influence we're going to have on it. Hopefully some, but might be some pretty good conversation. So I'm not against it at all. We need to address it at some point.
Okay. Thanks, Rod. Let's see. Donna.
I really don't have too much to add to this. I agree with everybody's opinion on it. I just don't know. I think we could be advisory. I just don't know how much power we're going to have on this side of this topic, but it's something we need to keep an eye on.
And one other quick point to why I think it's important to chat about is because it's actually happening, right? So there's lots of people doing it in the field. I've lots and lots of hunters. I would say probably 50% of the hunters that I talk to that are public land hunters tell me like, hey, I'm jumping corners. I'm either calling the landowner ahead and telling them that I'm doing it. Some of them aren't, obviously. So there's this mix of use happenings, and I think that's why it should be discussed.
So Donna, you're kind of on the fence. You're not opposed to talking about it.
No, not at all.
Okay. Let's see, Rich.
I think it should be talked about too. I will just be very honest that it's probably going to happen whether landowners like it or not. That's probably what's going to happen, but I'm going to be upset about it the whole way through. But I think in order to be something that you have a part in, I think it should be discussed, because I think we better be ready for the fact that if it comes through, there should be some teeth in whatever legislation or whatever rulemaking comes in to make sure that the landowners that are next to it are protected. Because really, when I look at a lot of those places, there's no fences that really block out, these checkerboard areas and where this stuff happens. And so someone comes in, I got my Onyx, I've stepped over, they're doing all that stuff. I get it. I get I'm at the lines and all that stuff, but then what precludes them from it being kind of running amok and going on the private property when they're all just kind of staggering up through there? There's basically no management. There's no enforcement. There's no nothing. And so I'm not going to like it any way we go through it, but I do want to be at the table. So when it gets stuffed down my throat, I guess I've made some comments about how some of the areas that I see are not being talked about, have been talked about.
Thanks, Rich. Eric?
I think we should probably discuss it to a degree, but we're not going to decide anything on here that's going to be really, we need to be prepared for it and see what the higher court says in Wyoming.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Paul, I think I haven't got you yet.
Well, I don't think it's going to hurt to discuss it. I don't think we need to focus on it to an extent where it's one of our biggest priorities. I think that first of all, we got to wait and see what happens in Wyoming. I mean, that's going to probably dictate a lot how this moves forward. And I haven't heard any legislation coming forward at all. I've had my ear to the ground pretty much there. I don't think either side is bringing anything forward right now. I think they're all waiting. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to discuss it. I think there's going to be a bunch of us got one opinion, a bunch of us got another opinion. But I personally think it's pretty hard to find a finite point in the ground and be able to cross over it. And Onyx maps is only good to 5 or 10 feet in their accuracy. So you don't know if that point is so thin, and I don't know how airspace comes into it, who owns the airspace. And I think there's some question there too, but yeah, we can talk about it. Sure. But I wouldn't make it a priority.
Okay. So that's a yes. So we will bring it as an item in the future, in the next few months. And I think I just want to make one statement about our opportunity. I appreciate the willingness to look at it before it's a problem. And I think we could have a discussion that could be beneficial in creating an awareness and knowledge about this question, and maybe heading off a fight, because we're doing everything we can to resolve the conflicts that we see daily within what already goes on, and improve everything relationally. And I see this as a huge question that could be a real problem for us. I mean, we talk about, the land trust BRBO, that's one. Yeah, that's a future problem. I think so. But clearly this is one that, in the nature and kind of what Paul just said, ultimately, it's kind of like when we were talking about PALAs, and you guys remember the Boone and Crockett Club up by DePoyer. That was a 3-year Montana State Supreme Court battle. Nobody really wins. So I think we have the opportunity to talk about it and be deliberative about it. Yeah, it's kind of like enforcement. How can we impact it? I do think we can impact it by having an intelligent conversation about it. So I appreciate all of your thought on it, and we will put it on coming down the road, April, May. We have some agenda items for April, May. Those are our next two hopeful meetings in person. So I think we will. We're just a bit behind, so I don't want to comment too long, but I did some math on the access programs that we already have. And without every detail, I think the discussion needs to be, when it comes, needs to be well informed, because I believe in the question of access, public and private, there's a lot more at risk than there is to gain if there's a fight about it. I mean, it's pretty clear. So we can talk about that later, but I mean, it's a factual reality that there's a lot more to lose for, and I'm speaking on behalf of the hunter. There's a lot more to lose if we fight about it than there is to gain. So we can get that later on when we can all look at it. Any other comments in that regard? Being none, I think that wraps up our prioritization. What did we leave on the table, Stephanie?
Sorry, I can share my screen again. Nope, that's okay. Let's see here. The items that we left on the table were education, technology, and addressing the emergence of private land reservation businesses. But I think as the conversation has gone on, we have realized that a lot of that just blends right in with block management and relationship building. So I have a feeling that they'll be addressed along the way.
Yep. Okay. So are we good to move to the next agenda item? Paul, I can't tell if you have your hand up again or.
I'm sorry, I do. I still think we ought to talk about the season setting as being a priority for us, because that could affect a lot of things going out there. I mean, probably more so especially in a non-legislative year. I mean, there's a lot going on out there in the season setting process that should be looked at. And I think that should be one of our priorities.
So noted. Thanks. Okay, we better jump. I don't want to cut this next presentation short, so we'll add on to it at the end if Colleen needs. But let's, are we good to move right into that? Stephanie, Colleen?
Yeah, I think that we are. I just want to add that the next section is really about FWP updates, and you'll notice a couple new pieces on here that we are going to try to integrate into our future meeting agendas. And depending on time, as time allows, I would really like to have staff offering some sort of presentation at each meeting, whether it's about an experience they've had, a relationship they're working on, or just sharing feedback that you might be interested in learning more about that happens in their day-to-day work. So just trying to help you understand what our boots on the ground are doing to help support the work that you're working on as well. And then the other piece is we have a staff report that went out with the agenda. I'm not going to spend much time on that, but if you have questions about that, or if there's items of value that you would like to see in that staff report, just communicate with Ed and he'll make sure to let me know so that we can work with staff to get that in. So with that, when we had our regional access manager retreat back in December, Colleen shared her success with the Matador Ranch this past season. So our access managers had lots of questions and positive feedback, and I thought it'd be great to invite her here today to share what that looked like. And she has Dean Walty joining her. So we'll turn it over to Colleen. I think she's going to share her screen and just talk about what that was. Take it away, Colleen.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. So Dean Walty is also on the phone or on the line. He is the Sheridan area biologist that covers where this project occurred. And then I'm the access manager out of Southwest Montana. And so let me get to do the screen share here. So were you able to see this?
Yeah. Yep, we can.
All right. So the plan today is to just take a few minutes and go through a really brief introduction of the project and talk about what we did for a coordinated hunt down on the Matador Ranch and Cattle Company for the 2022 season. And then we left a lot of room for questions at the end. So what we wanted to do is a brief overview and then dig in deep where you all might have questions. You'll see in the little map end set here, the project area was located south of Dillon, Montana. So the project involved contiguous portions of the Matador Ranch and Cattle and Lassance Ranch located down south of Dillon. These are two large cattle hay operations with a common owner and independent ranch managers. Portions of the Matador have been formally enrolled in block management since 1996, but due to livestock pivots, homes, ranch equipment, and just their operations and safety concerns, this coordinated hunt area was not included in block management previously. So due to these safety concerns, both ranches had allowed hunting in the area on a very limited and coordinated basis, but the hunting was not sufficient to reduce elk populations, and achieving a sufficient harvest in a safe manner was thought to be too labor intensive to implement with the ongoing ranch operations. So the need to harvest and disperse elk was apparent to both the Matador and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. There were disease concerns in the area where we had brucellosis that's been detected among elk, overlapping with those wintering cattle during transmission risk periods. The ranch had concerns regarding elk-cattle overlap and field dressing large numbers of elk among those cattle. And then CWD had been detected among white-tailed deer in the area, and the CWD transmission to elk is possible. And then elk concentrations in the area were concerning to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks wildlife managers. So intense elk use of the agricultural lands was another factor. About 15 years ago, there was 30 to 40 elk that arrived in the hunt area. By 2013, the biologist was seeing over 1,000 elk spending over 7 months in the area. And from the 2014 to 2018 season, elk harvest increased through less restrictive antlerless regulations in the general season. There was some ranch coordinated hunter access, and then there was game damage hunts. Elk use decreased during the periods of increased harvest, but hunter management was labor intensive for the ranches. So as harvest decreased again, elk use increased. In 2021, the biologist had seen over 2,500 elk observed in this hunt area. Again, we recognize the need for increased hunter harvest in that area. So Dean and I had talked about the access needs. We talked about what could we do, where and how could we help. Dean scheduled some meetings with the ranch managers and ranch staff, and we went through what had worked well for them in the past and what they needed help with to maybe help accomplish some elk harvest. We established the hunt area, which you'll see in the cross-hatched pink. The ranch indicated where there were safety zones. Obviously, there's a lot of homes in the area. It's flat profile, a lot of ag pivots. And so safety was a very significant concern. And then we structured this as a regional access project, as a services contract. On site, we posted 2 area kiosks with maps and rules. The maps were available for hunters to take, or we encouraged, if the map box was empty, to go ahead and just take a photo of the rules. We had 2 in-person signups at the Dillon Search and Rescue. which generated a list of 243 interested hunters. After the second sign up, hunters were posting comments and chatting about the opportunity, and the Matador Ranch was getting calls, Fish, Wildlife and Parks was getting calls, the biologists and some other staff were getting calls about continued interest to be a part of this. And so we established a dedicated phone line, a 1-800 line, for additional requests. And so the hunter list in 8 days was over 576 hunter requests. So the ranch also posted signs that indicated the hunt area so that the public would be aware that this was a different unit than the block management area. So it was truly a partnership project. FWP committed vehicles with winches, otter sleds to move elk, ramps to load and haul those elk to those field dressing stations. I'm sorry, I might have skipped that part. Back on the map, we did, let me go back here if I can. On the map, we did established 3 field dressing stations. And so the idea was that those elk would be moved and only field dressed in these field dressing locations. So that was another concern and consideration that the ranch had as a priority. So getting those elk moved to those field dressing stations required some resources. So we committed resources with trucks, sleds, and ramps. We contracted 2 full-time staff that were on site to accompany elk hunters at all times. We committed a full-time FWP staff member, and then we had other FWP staff working intermittently. We had biologists involved, enforcement involved, other access staff. We did shift some of our access staff, the hunting access techs, over to help cover on site as needed. And then the Matador Ranch committed significant resources as well. They committed ranch trucks, tractor, utility vehicles. They also had sleds to move those elk around. They committed housing for all staff and full use of the cookhouse facility for meeting with hunters. They assisted with the sign installation. They were coordinating with FWP for ranch activities, elk estimations, and in constant communication. Their office was also involved redirecting hunters to our 800 lines, et cetera, as calls and questions came up. And they had a backhoe and ranch operator that were on site nearly daily to clear those field dressing stations. So our 2022 elk harvest, our biologist estimated over 600 elk would need to be harvested to reduce this population. We had 6 pre-general season game damage elk harvested. We had 392 general season elk harvested, 42 of which were harvested mostly by youth hunters. We had 5 post-general season game damage hunters, game damage elk that were killed, which helped to disperse those elk back out. So we saw a robust general season elk harvest around that general season as elk moved in and out. And looking at those numbers, we had over 400 elk harvested. And if you look at an average cow yielding 160 pounds of meat with an average bull yielding 190 pounds of meat, we estimate that the Matador Ranch and Cattle Elk Project yielded over 65,000 pounds of elk meat to the public. Some of the things we learned is that hunter interest was high from all across Montana. The in-person sign up was provided great opportunity for both FWP and the ranch staff to explain the intent of the project and talk to those interested hunters. There was a lot of interest in harvesting antlerless elk, with a lot of public support for the youth being able to take the bulls. The coordinated hunt worked really well with ongoing ranch operations, and constant communication was very important. We had a high percentage of hunters that were very appreciative and well behaved of the opportunity. This created a great opportunity for youth to harvest an elk. And additionally, we had a lot of opportunity for people of all ages that had never had a chance to kill an elk, or elderly folks that said this might be their last elk. Some of the hunters were poor shots, but in the rules, we limited how many times hunters could shoot, and the hunt coordinators had full authority to tell people to stop. So that was a valuable tool for the hunt coordinators. Recognizing we needed to be adaptive throughout the hunt was really important. And the elk remained in a small portion of the hunt area more consistently than anyone expected. They often did not flee far, possibly due to minimal shots and no field dressing in the area. The elk would almost move off as they retrieved an elk and bed down. And then the groups were moving and returning to the pivot area almost daily. So looking ahead for the fall of 2023, the Matador Ranch and FWP desire greater elk harvest and dispersion for this area. The ranch is willing to allow public harvest, but they need help with coordinating that. The FWP Regional Access Project worked, and we wonder how it could help in the future. And then it was truly a partnership between FWP and the Matador Ranch on coordinating public hunter access to harvest elk in an area that was an intense burst of workload during that 5-week season. So with that, I'll open it up. Dean's on the line too for any questions you might have.
This is Cindy. I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I have received positive comments on this hunt from other hunters. Thank you.
Everett, I see you up there.
Yeah, I was just curious, do you have more specific numbers about hunters being a poor shot? How many were a poor shot? How many shots they needed? That kind of thing. I think that really informs on some of what we have talked about in the past about needing a little bit better quality of hunter for some things.
Yeah, we have some of the examples. I can look through notes as far as specifics, but enforcement indicated they had a total of 16 computer aided dispatches. And so they were out, they issued 8 to 10 warnings, 4 were non-violation calls, 9 to 11 citations in the area. Some of these were on the Matador itself, some were adjacent areas. So as I would have to look into the details as far as how many were given warnings or given citations, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I would, I guess I'm more concerned about just the accuracy or lack thereof and all of that. So I mean, I hate to give you more work, Colleen, but I think I would like to see that info at some point.
I can add to that. In thinking back to visiting with our hunt coordinators, so to take a step back, and as part of our rules, we established that we did not want hunters shooting at any elk that were moving, so only shooting at stationary elk. And if by a second shot at standing elk, they had clearly not hit an elk, we'd like them to stop shooting. There's some legitimate safety concerns in this particular area. If you look back, or we can illustrate it on the map, we've got 3 county roads, 2 ranch headquarters, a lot of ag infrastructure, a couple subdivisions. It's very, very flat terrain. So any bullets that don't connect, they go a long ways. But in working with our coordinators, I can recall we had about 8 or 10 hunters that by a second shot had not hit an elk, and we asked them not to shoot anymore. What the coordinators would do is ask them to check their rifle, the zero on their rifle, and if they did that, welcome to come back. We only had, that I recall, 1 instance of a hunter that did not hit elk. Elk took off running, and even in spite of the coordinator asking him to stop, continued to shoot. So I guess about 10 out of roughly 400 or a little over 400 hunters. So it was a pretty low percentage of hunters that didn't come out and effectively harvest an elk in a shot or 2.
Thanks, Dean.
Dale?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. First, Colleen and Dean, thanks for being on today. First question, I'll just ask them both and then you can answer them. How much was BLM and DNRC involved, and were there lands involved? And then secondly, as I saw your slide, Colleen, about the sign up, as I saw that, it looked like people could sign up, with a search and rescue or someplace they had to sign up in person. Doesn't that indicate a bias for people that live in the area? And I know there was an opportunity to sign up online later on, but is that something that there's a need to change or a desire to change, or are you trying to cater more towards people that live in the Dillon area? Thank you.
Well, I'll start with the in-person sign up. This year we were not sure what the interest level would be, and then we also were uncertain on how it would go. Would the elk stay in the area? Would they disperse out? And so the interest initially by the ranch was to do a local sign up. We did have quite a few people from out of area drive to do the sign up. We had some people from out of state drive to sign up for the opportunity. And so, the initial signups were mixed. Later on, we did get significant signups from all across the state as interest grew. So the interest was to have an opportunity to meet with people in person, discuss the hunt, discuss the objectives, and just it was a new opportunity. So there was an interest to have those in-person signups. And I believe they were helpful. But we did also still see some out of area and non-resident hunters sign up at that time.
Dale, I'd speak to agency involvement. We did not have any of the state or BLM lands incorporated into our coordinated hunt area, but we have worked with the ranches in the past, managing elk here, including some game damage program management hunts. And those hunts in the past have included some state lands, and we've worked with the agencies on that. All the lands that we're seeing, the state and federal in proximity to the hunt area are all legally accessible to the public. And there is a fair bit of hunting that occurs on those lands as well. And that, as you heard Colleen say, we'd hunt elk or I shouldn't say the hunters and hunt coordinators would hunt elk in the hunt area. By the end of day, a lot of elk could be moved off. When those elk moved to neighboring lands, there was additional hunting occurring there too. That hunting pressure did routinely move elk back down into the hunt area. Another aspect that could have influenced what we saw for elk distribution this year is, as others mentioned earlier in the meeting, we did experience a lot of snow cover in this part of the state starting opening weekend of the rifle season. And I think that kept a lot of elk in the valleys through November too, and probably influenced what we experienced with this hunt this last fall.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that feedback.
Rich, I see you up there.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is the type of programs that really per region, I mean, we could be doing more of. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. I have personally been on Lassant and Matador a number of times down there and seen these areas and see the you know, even, and I don't know if it's still the pressures, you guys mentioned pressures from other hunters, but I recall talking to the managers down there saying there was more pressure from wolves that would cause the elk to stay on the feed grounds. And plus, if you look at all the center pivots down there, if I was an elk, I know where I'd be during especially a snow year. But I was curious to ask, and you'd mentioned it, Dean. So when you look at what you determined from biologists, whenever, that it had to be greater than 600 and you only harvested 4, is it just the start of the program? And I mean, is the Matador, and since they're all owned by Rupert Murdoch now, Lassance and Matador, is the goal to keep doing this and try to get to that 600? And if they only harvested 400, you'd mentioned, Dean, that there were off area animals harvested. Were those included in that 400 count?
Yeah, good question, Rich. So this is a hunt and a coordinated effort we've been working on since 2014, and we've had varying levels of hunter harvest and elk distribution. It's gone up and down since then. We had a pretty good harvest of elk here in 2015 too, under a similar effort that was coordinated by the ranches themselves, and it's pretty effective at harvesting elk, eventually reducing the number and dispersing them out of the hunt area subsequently, but very labor intensive, very difficult for the ranch to take on themselves. In terms of that harvest, the roughly 400 harvests that were achieved, that does not include any harvests that occurred surrounding the hunt area. That's specifically what we achieved within the coordinated hunt itself. So there were, for instance, a couple days I worked check station here, and I would check as many elk getting harvested in proximity to the hunt area as within. So some days our harvest was just as good outside as it was within. And that was part of our objective. It has been in the past in this hunt. Is I didn't think we would be able to effectively achieve that level of harvest in this hunt area and do it safely and in an organized fashion. But part of this was also looking to use that hunting pressure to disperse elk outside of that hunt area to neighboring private and public where additional hunters could get at them. And without a doubt that occurred. I'm in the process of surveying these elk right now, but I expect that across the landscape or the elk herd itself, we very likely achieved that needed harvest of at least 600 elk. And I'm expecting we'll see some population reduction. To what extent, I don't know. I've got a lot of pictures of elk groups I took here. I got to work through them and count those elk. I can assure you we're still going to be dealing with a lot of elk here next year. And we are routinely observing over 50 calves per 100 cows in these populations. So it's very high reproductive output, which is what drives in part that need for a lot of harvest. So we'll do these surveys. when we start talking about hunter access agreements again this coming year, I'll reconnect with the ranch, and from my perspective, I'm confident we're going to need to continue to find a way to harvest elk in this ag environment. I would hope with some harvest, we'll see a population reduction, and we have seen in the past elk staying out of this area a little longer when our hunting pressure is a little higher. So I'd hope that elk will stay dispersed a bit more as well.
Well, Dean, let me just end with this. I think it's a great example of the right direction for landowners. And I think it could go both ways. It could also be in an area where it's been overhunted so badly that we actually need to set up some things where we aren't going to allow people to go. And I think that's what the regions can look at. And I think what FWP and the biologists have a huge opportunity to do. I mean, this is I think this is a great thing. And I think just being a landowner myself and knowing what they go through there, these are the types of challenges that really, if you want to talk about relationship building and doing things, you're providing a service to a big outfit down there that doesn't have the resources and yet has a large, I mean, basically they're feeding those elk. And so I think it's a step in the right direction. And I think it should be something that should be looked at and resources put in other parts of the state where either animals are overpopulated or even underpopulated, where biologists, landowners and stuff can put these projects together and help do this to make the basically wildlife situations good in all parts of the state. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Colleen and Dean, for coming and presenting this. This is really awesome. I think the department needs to be complimented on this. It's a very, very well done project, and it's taken a lot of effort, and I appreciate you guys doing that and bringing that forward. I think it's been an excellent example of how we can work with landowners and improve the access issues for everybody. So I think it's another good thing to note out of this is the hunt coordinators and the amount of effort that Fish and Game put into make sure the hunt was conducted the way the landowners wanted it done. So good job.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul. I'd add, I don't think we should overlook the input from the ranches on this one too. It was a true partnership, and they invested a lot into making this happen as well, and they invested some trust in partnering with us to try something new, which I feel was really important.
Additional
Yeah,
questions?
I agree. I agree with that, Dean. It was definitely a true partnership. I mean, they put forth a lot of effort. They put a lot of trust in us. They provided housing and resources for our staff. Communication was great and so important for this one. Almost daily communication to coordinate ranch activities with hunt activities. So it was a great success. So thank you.
Any other council questions or comments? Okay. So yeah, I mean, what an incredible project and combined effort. You know, when you look at, I've hunted in that area too, and knowing the topography and how that all comes together. I mean, it certainly appears to be a model effort to make the right things happen and make that coordination become successful over a period of time. And man, I really appreciate all the work and coordination you guys put into that. It's a phenomenal task to accomplish, to manage wildlife like that and get all the parties together. Very, very impressive. So thank you both very, very much. How are you going to repeat it where it needs to be repeated? It would be my question.
wait and see. I think everyone was surprised at how the elk stayed pretty local in that area, even though there was hunting occurring. And so we don't know if it could be replicated, but it was successful at harvesting elk, and we'll just look forward to trying again for next year.
Well, again, thank you both very much for that presentation and your work all the time to make that happen over, what is that, 8 years you said, Dean? Just on that?
Yeah, we've been working with the ranches on elk distribution and harvest here since about 2014.
Yeah.
So it's been an ongoing and adaptive program. And so this hunt we did this year, it wasn't something we just entirely made up. It was built off that longer term working relationship. And we had some examples to work from and some expectations as to how it might go. These types of things often don't happen overnight. I don't think this one's going to resolve itself in a one and done. It'll be an ongoing management effort.
Well, again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, let's see. I got kicked off there. I can't see anything. So I don't know if you're all in that same situation. I can hear you. Hello?
Hi, Chair. I can hear you and I can see you. So, yeah.
I might leave and join. So, Stephanie, if you want to
All right.
take that next step.
Sure. Thank you. So just very quickly, I want to be able to jump in and welcome Deb O'Neill here in just a moment to provide a legislative update. However, I'll go ahead and just go quickly down through the other updates that I wanted to provide. Yesterday evening, I had sent out a notice that has all of the upcoming landowner appreciation dinners. So I'm hopeful that most of you may be able to attend one that's in your region. And if you are, I also put your contact information for your regional access manager. I know that most regional access managers are sending out invitations directly to you as well. So feel free to reach out to them to attend one or two if you're interested. And we'd love to see you at any of those. So even if there's one that's not in your region that you'd like to attend, just reach out to that regional access manager or myself, and we'll make sure that you can attend. I think that we're planning to have a landowner panel in May. So what Ed and I were talking about yesterday was trying to identify who would be appropriate. So I would just ask that you reach out to Ed if you have any ideas. I know that he has a couple ideas as well, and he's going to work with Jason to make that happen for our May meeting. And like I mentioned, we did attach a staff report to the agenda this past send out, and we're going to continue to do that and try it for this year to see if it adds value. If there's anything specific that you would like to see in that staff report, let Ed know, and we'll make sure to add that. And I would also just add, if there is a particular topic or anything that you would like to see staff present, reach out to Ed or send me an email, and we'll try to get it on the agenda here this year. That's all that I have. I'll turn it back to Chair Beal.
Okay, so any last comments before we take a quick break? Richard, your hand still up?
Yeah, just really quick, Stephanie, just one thing, looking at all those dates, a lot of guys, Dylan, our area, we're calving all that time. Yeah. Just FYI. So I'm not sure how you can fix it or would want to, but just FYI.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if June is too busy for you as well, and if heading to Missoula is a little bit too far, but if you would like to attend one of those, Missoula doesn't occur until June.
Cynthia, Cindy?
Yes, Stephanie, the survey, for whatever reason, it wouldn't allow me to get into the survey. I got the link, but it never would let me in. The staff report and the agenda are, it never came either, just so you know.
Thank you. I'll double check to make sure that we have the right email address.
Okay. Anything else before we take just a quick break? And then we'll look at some legislative updates. You're good. So let's do, let's see. Let's do, if we can, let's just do like 5 minutes and then come back to it. Okay. So that would make it, let's say 10:55. All right. Thanks. Everybody getting back here? Howdy, howdy, howdy. Okay. It looks like we got everybody. So important question in the well, it's not afternoon, of the morning. Does anybody know why the Clydesdale gave the pony a glass of water? Karen, you should know this one. Why did the Clydesdale give the pony a glass of water? Because he was a little horse. All righty, here we go. So next up, I believe is Deb O'Neill from FWP. Gonna give us all the latest, greatest on legislative update, all the busy activity going on. So we want to welcome Deb to the meeting. Hi, Deb. I can't hear you. Can hear you kind of muffled.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. My system defaulted to a different microphone, it looks like. Okay, so thank you for everybody for having me. I could do this a variety of different ways. So let me know if this doesn't work for you. Right now we're following about 185 different bills that affect FWP in some manner, and that could be anywhere from, you know, enforcement to human resources things, pay plan. So it's not just, you know, fish, wildlife, parks, recreation. It's a variety of things. And there's 185 bills right now that have been introduced that we're following that impact us somehow. Of those, about, I would say, a third or so affect the fish, wildlife, parks, and recreation side of things. So I'll probably plan on just going over the 14 bills that I presented to you guys prior to the session, tell you where those are at, talk about a couple other bills, and then just really take questions on anything that I haven't covered or go into more detail on the ones that I have covered. Does that work? Okay. All right, so I'll just start with the ones that I presented to you guys that are, we call our bills, our FWP bills, that we brought before EQC and that we sought sponsors for. And then the rest of the bills are ones that legislators have brought on their own that are not our bills but impact us. So the first one, House Bill 42, this is about allowing FWP, non-law enforcement FWP employees to be trained and use firearms in their work activities in work duties that they need a firearm for. That went through the first committee. It's in Senate Fish and Game right now and waiting for executive action. We expect it to pass out of committee. And feel free to stop me and ask questions while I'm going through this. Like I said last time, most of our bills are cleanup bills. The next one was repealing surety bond requirements for licensed agents. We don't require them to have a bond anymore when they collect money on our behalf. We just take it directly from their bank accounts. So this is an outdated law that needed to be repealed. Went through both committees, both floors, and it's awaiting being sent to the governor. Eliminate requirement to release pheasants from the upland game bird program. This is House Bill 74. This eliminates the requirement to spend money on releasing birds, and rather just focus on habitat improvements. And that went through the first committee and the floor. It's in the second committee. It's in Senate Fish and Game, waiting for executive action on that. I'm not sure if that will pass or not. A lot of folks are interested in releasing birds for this program because it's not just pheasants, it's all upland birds. So I'm not sure that this one will move out of committee as is. Next one is House Bill 86, removing the sunset for the Wildlife Habitat Improvement Program. That made it through both committees. It made it through both floor sessions. They did amend it once to be named after Representative Flynn, who started this program. So that was a nice tribute to him. So that's being, we're waiting for that to be sent to the governor. This one, again, a real quick cleanup, and it's being sent to the governor soon, House Bill 99. It's eliminating reference to a non-resident temporary snowmobile permit. We don't have that permit anymore, so that was just strictly a cleanup bill. House, let's see, that's not ours. House Bill 131. This is removing the 24-hour wait requirement for a wolf license. This one, we missed this last session. We removed the weight requirement for all other species. We removed the requirement for bear and lion, and this is the only species that you have to wait to harvest an animal after you purchase the license. This made it through House Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and made it through the House floor, and we're waiting to have it scheduled in Senate Fish and Game. House Bill 133 was to allow non-resident college students to purchase FWP licenses online. Right now, they have to go to a office to purchase their licenses, and that's because they have to present documentation that they are indeed a non-resident full-time student here. And we don't need them to do that anymore. We can have them upload that documentation. So we're just allowing them to purchase licenses online if this bill goes through, and it's awaiting being sent to the governor right now. It made it through everything. The next one was creating a landowner preference to hunt deer and antelope. That was House Bill 146. Again, a cleanup bill. We have this in rule, but not in statute, while we have elk in statute. So we wanted to be consistent and get deer and antelope in statute along with elk. This made it through House Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and the floor. It's awaiting executive action in Senate Fish and Game right now. House Bill 162 is revising the electronic tag law. This was allowing any animal that has that requires a carcass tag to be an E-tag. Right now, it's just for game and turkey, and this law would allow any animal that has a carcass tag to be an E-tag, and that is being awaited. We're waiting on that being sent to the governor as well. I'm just trying to find our next one. Okay, this one you guys are interested in, I'm sure. Senate Bill 58, increasing the landowner payment cap for block management, increasing it from $25,000 to $50,000. It has had wide support, no problems there. It made it through Senate Fish and Game and the Senate floor. But it had to be referred to Senate Finance and Claims because it's an appropriations bill, and it passed out of there too. So we're just waiting for scheduling it in House Fish, Wildlife, and Parks next. We don't anticipate any issues with this one. Senate Bill 76 is revising the paper tag laws, and that was simply not requiring the tag be attached to the carcass. Obviously, if you opted for an E-tag, You don't attach the phone to the carcass, so why would we require continuing to attach the paper tag to the carcass? So this just eliminates that requirement and requires that it accompany the animal. And that's gone through Senate Fish and Game and the floor, Senate floor, and we're just waiting for it to be scheduled in House Fish, Wildlife and Parks. Revising laws related to hunting and aircraft use. This is the one that amends drones to be considered aircraft. And it would have to follow all other aircraft rules. That has made it out of Senate Fish and Game and the floor, and we're just waiting for it to be scheduled in House Fish, Wildlife and Parks. Senate Bill 85 is requiring management of delisted grizzly bears at sustainable levels. So this is once grizzly bears are delisted, that the agency FWP is required to manage them at sustainable levels, and that includes all sources of mortality. So that includes translocation out of an area. We would include that as a mortality, and that again has made it through the first committee, Senate, and the floor, and we're waiting for it to be scheduled in House Fish, Wildlife and Parks. We do have another bill that if that goes through, we probably will not see this one go through, and that's okay. We're okay with that, and that's Senate Bill 295, and I'll talk about that after I go through our bills. Senate Bill 88 was a cleanup, and it's exempting lifetime fishing licenses for the blind from the purchasing an AISPP pass. And that is the only prerequisite license that a person who is blind has to buy. They don't have to buy any other prerequisite license. So we're exempting them from the AIS pass. And that's just awaiting being scheduled in the second committee as well. That was all of our FWP bills. And I guess I'll pause there to see if there's any questions on those before I hit a couple other bills that you guys might be interested in.
Any questions?
Okay. I have a bunch of screens here. So this one, whoops. This one is the PALA bill being carried by Logie, Representative Logie, and there's several other sponsors or co-sponsors now. And it is House Bill 438, and it's an act entitled an act revising laws related to public access land agreement applications, removing the fee to propose a public access land agreement, and providing an immediate effective date. So I believe this was a PLPW bill, and that will be heard on tomorrow in House Natural Resources. So look for that. That's at 3 p.m. and Logie will be presenting that to House Natural Resources. And that draft is out there. The other bill I mentioned was Senate Bill 295. This is revising laws to accommodate grizzly bear delisting. This is Senator Gillespie. Senator Gillespie carried House Bill or Senate Bill 98 last session. And this is basically cleaning up that bill a little bit to also include all sources of mortality and also include the bill says that a grizzly bear that's in the act of attacking a person or livestock can be dispatched right there on the spot. But if a grizzly bear is threatening livestock or a person, that has to be, FWP has to be called, and either we would handle it or we would allow the person to handle it right then and there but we have to be contacted, given, and provide guidance on that. And now also, like I said, all mortalities are included in this bill as well. So that would be translocations. It would include landowner action on a grizzly bear if they harvested it or they dispatched it. That would be included in the mortality, obviously. And we are required to manage those grizzly bears to above the delisted level. We are responding, this bill is in response to a letter we received from the Fish and Wildlife Service. In order to delist grizzly bears, they identified a couple holes that they would like to see us fix in legislation. And this bill fixes a couple of those holes. So we'll be one step closer to delisting grizzly bears. Another bill that I heard mentioned when I first got on with you guys this morning was House Bill 243, and that was revising hunter education laws. You guys talked about that a little bit, but I wanted to clarify that this bill does not require in-person classes. That's not what it requires. It requires the class can be taken online. The bill requires an in-person field day. And that's different from the in-person class. So that would be a one-day field day with firearm safety training. And that was amended once just by changing the effective date. So it gives us time to ramp up this hunter ed program. And that's all I was really going to go over. But I'm here to answer any questions on any other bills that you guys are interested in, that you know about, and I could tell you where we're at with them and where FWP is at with them.
Dale, go
I have
ahead.
a question.
Sure.
House Bill, I think it's 372 is Paul Fielder's bill that establishes a constitutional right to hunt and fish. A similar bill came up 2 years ago, and I want to say that there was some concerns from the department. I know you can't really campaign for or against a bill, but can you give us an idea where the department, what their thoughts are on this? Thank you.
Sure. And we can lobby for or against bills. In this case, we're not going to on this bill. We are not. This is above our pay grade. Basically, this is since it's a constitutional amendment. All constitutional amendments land in the governor's office, so we are not weighing in on this bill at all.
Additional questions? Paul? You're on mute, Paul.
Sorry. What about HB 462? Is that the Habitat Montana bill? I guess the thing I was wondering about is the actual funding on that, that Habitat Montana has. Is there adequate funding according to the department? And where are their funding sources coming from and all that? That makes sense?
So yeah, I think so. And let me know if I'm not answering what you're asking. So House Bill 462 carried by Bertolio supports the governor's budget. And the governor's budget, as you know, removed all of the marijuana money from Habitat Montana support. And that's basically what Bertolio's bill does as well. It strips the funding from Habitat Montana. We're informational on this bill, but the bottom line is we've had funding prior to the marijuana money coming to us. We still have plenty of money in that account. And as you know, going through the land board now, we have to be very deliberate and thoughtful about where we're purchasing and what we're purchasing and if they're easements or fee title. So we support the governor's budget on this. We didn't recommend any changes to it. And yeah, we're just sitting there and providing information today if we're asked of any questions.
Cynthia?
Hi, I have a question on HB 482, the blocking public access. Are you guys supporting that bill or
House Bill
taking a
which?
position?
Which House Bill? I couldn't hear you.
482.
482?
Yep.
Okay,
It's
let me
the bill on the fine for blocking public access.
Let me just pull it up. One second. I have so many screens open right now. There we go. Oh, my computer is very slow right now, sorry. There we go, we're getting there.
I don't think 482 is the right number.
Yeah, I'm not seeing 482.
It's I thought it was the right number, but it is the one that's about the fine increasing from $10 to $500.
Yeah, we're not weighing in on that. Yeah, it's not showing up as 482. Yeah, we're not weighing in on that at all. We're staying out of that because it's doesn't impact us at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions? For Deb, are you aware of any other that are coming up soon in regards to access or?
Yeah, there's another one. Let me pull that one up that I meant to mention to you guys. This is House Bill 596. And this is also Representative Logie, and this has to do with the elk hunting access agreements. And that is being heard. No, that was just introduced. That's not being heard. That hasn't been scheduled yet, but that was introduced by Representative Logie, and he has Representative Malone and Fitzgerald as co-sponsors. And this is the title is an act revising elk hunting access agreement cooperator licenses, providing definitions and amending the statute. So that was introduced, so we're awaiting schedule on that as well.
Okay. Any last comments? Okay, hearing none. I'm getting ready to leave for a business trip and a little visit down in Arizona, and I think all that stuff's coming next week and that following. I mean, from what I've seen. So you guys watch it closely, but I think it's gonna ramp up a little bit.
Yeah, things are moving fast now. We just, went from about watching 100 bills to 185 overnight. So
yep,
it's happening now.
Yeah.
Hey, Deb, can you tell us what the transmittal date deadline, there's a date that after that point, if the bills haven't been introduced, they're not going to be heard. What is that date?
So the date for non-appropriation bills already has come and gone. So there can't be any more bills requested unless it has an appropriation with it, unless it's tied to money. The other date for appropriation bills, I'll give you that exact date here in a second. It's coming up. Maybe my computer again, like I said, is really being finicky. Okay, the appropriation bill date is okay. So like I said, the general bill one, I misspoke, is the 20th. So that's Monday. That's the last day to request general bills. The last day to introduce general bills is the 24th. And the last day to request appropriation bills is the 3rd, March 3rd. And the last day to introduce appropriation bills is March 28th. So there's a little bit of runway on appropriation bills. So you're going to see a lot of bills with money being added to it for pretty much no reason, just so they could have a little bit more time to introduce these bills. And transmit break is where the legislature takes the break to transmit from one house to the other, is the 4th through the 8th. So that's when you'll see Helena get quiet again for a while.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Deb. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Stephanie, anything else before we go to public comment?
I do not have anything else unless you and the group wanted to discuss any of the updates amongst yourselves. I noticed that Director Warsick is back.
I see him. So let's go to Director Warsick.
Yeah, I apologize. I was just able to get back on. We were listening to our long range appropriation and how that went, House Bill 5. So, I just wanted to get another opportunity. Does anybody have any questions of me? And once again, I want to thank everybody for their efforts on this council. It's been great. So, any questions of me before you sign off and go to public comment?
Come on, Lee. Oh, Rich has got his hand up.
Okay, good.
Hey, and just really quick, Director. As we talked in our group today about some collaborative efforts and getting with DNRC and BLM and FWP as we go throughout our year, do you feel that we have good support in getting with the other members of those other offices, if you will, to talk about issues that we have and that involve recreation, hunting, but then also private land and public land?
Yes, I think anytime, I think everybody knows me by now. My whole idea is to collaborate and get people talking whenever we can and working together on this stuff. So, yeah, we'll be, and I explained before, we're going to have more full court press with enforcement, reaching out and talking to other things, with helping with management and enforcement of issues on all types of properties. And then also, working with the other agency. We're just on a call. Marina from Region 3 was just on a call that I was trying to get on too, with Yellowstone and that whole group down there working with the Forest Service and things. So we keep these meetings. I want to expand them throughout the state and how we can interact, because recreation is here to stay, and we're going to have people recreating all kinds of things. And I will bring up one thing real quick is we have a bill out there that's called House Bill 243. And that's, I don't know if she was able to talk about that or Deb talked about that or not, but that's the one that is going to require in-person hunter education for the field course. And I'm actually putting another group together on that, and the message has gone out to volunteers right now to ask for some membership on that. We're going to open it up, and then we're going to do some more recruiting for instructors. And and really get that. But the big thing I want to do with this opportunity, as I've explained, is I want to take hunter education not down to the foundation, but down to the studs, and see what we can do to make it better and what we're looking for. What is our goal? Because I know from my perspective, we've missed a lot of that landowner sportsman relationships in our hunter education, the basic opportunities. But I think this is an opportunity to look at this and build a better product. And it goes in line with when I've listened to PLPW talking about, you know, with the 1 Montana, the increased hunter, you know, hunter programs, stuff like that, hunter programs. So I think this will be a good opportunity to work on that as well. So I'll probably be looking for maybe a member or two that I look for out of PLPW to join this too. So I'll be reaching out to people on that. Does that answer your question? A little long way.
Any other questions for the director?
Well, thank you all again. Great work. And Ed, enjoy yourself in sunny Arizona.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, I'm gonna get off. Thank you all.
Thank you. I forgot one thing and then we'll jump to public comment. Representative Logie is also bringing a bill that will, and I just want you to be aware of it, that will I guess it will require a conservation license for access at access sites, such as fishing access sites. So that's coming, and just be aware of it. It's come before, and hopefully time is now. So that's coming up here pretty quick too. It hasn't been entered yet, but I think he's right there at that point, and it would help.
Do you want me to say anything about that? Do you want me to
Sure.
talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah, so we were working, you know, helping Representative Logie write that, so it's something that we could implement. And it's really a great, it's all about equity. You know, we're hearing from a lot of legislators that we don't need the money, and it's not about that. It's about equity. We want to have people. We don't want to have hunters and anglers feel like they're carrying the load for everybody like they always have been. And so we really want this to be equitable. Some legislators are concerned that we're restricting access, and they don't want to limit out-of-staters to be able to come here and float for a couple hours. And we understand that, but those floaters are still using our restrooms and throwing things away, and we still have to manage that. So we're working with those legislators to help them understand the equity part, the equitable part. And we worked with the penalty section with DNRC and Representative Logie to make it not such a strict penalty. And I think it actually was introduced. I think it's out there now. Let me just make sure, and I'll tell you the bill number. Yeah, it's House Bill 521, and that actually is being heard tomorrow in House Natural Resources. And so we reduced the penalty section to have it be a warning the first year, and that's what it always is anyway. Our law enforcement take that first year for the opportunity to educate people when things change. This doesn't mean any more income for us, really. What we're going to do is pay DNRC. We renegotiated our contract with DNRC to allow access to their land. So they'll be, we haven't seen a fiscal note yet, but they'll be making more money on this and we probably won't be seeing any more revenue from this bill, but we're okay with that.
Thank you, Deb. Everett, you got a last hand up?
Yeah, Deb, didn't we drop that bill for the fishing access site yet?
That's the one we're talking about.
What was the bill number on it?
House Bill 521.
521.
It's being heard tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anything else before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none. Jen, are you seeing any public comment there?
Anyone who would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. I see none, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So did anybody have any final questions on anything we've gone over yet? None. So let's let's scramble that a little bit and let's talk about the meeting schedule. Okay. So knowing that our current year runs now through July 31st, Stephanie and I were working on schedules, and we're trying to keep in mind everybody across the board how we do this and availability. And we know it's tough for everybody to be available. So we're looking at potentially 3 meetings before the end of July. Do you want to go through them, Steph?
Sure. We had talked about doing the 3 meetings before the end of July, and those dates would be April 27th in Helena, and would be focusing on the priorities that you talked about today. We're also looking at May 18th in Great Falls, and then looking at July 13th. And not sure yet on location, maybe considering heading way over to the eastern side of the state, because we don't get over there that often and it's beautiful. So we're looking at Glasgow or Miles City possibly, keeping in mind that there is always the option to Zoom in as well, because I know everybody's busy. So we'll always have that Zoom option. So if everybody's okay with that, then we'll go ahead and I'll send those dates out so that you can get them on your calendar early. And keeping in mind that if you do have agenda ideas or requests of staff for any information or presentations, just to reach out to Chair Beal and let him know what it is that you'd be interested in seeing or hearing more about, so that staff can prepare in advance.
And so to flesh that out just a little bit more, so April 27th, we can pull that off. Our main focus would be the beginning of the deep dive into block management and all the questions and input we had today, to really be working that through. That would be the #1 focus for that meeting. Coincidentally, it would be a great opportunity for all of us. Region 3 with Colleen and her crew would be having a landowner cooperator dinner, an appreciation dinner, and it would be in Montana City. So if you don't know, Montana City is on the southern border of Helena. So it would be a great opportunity for us to all be there and be part of that, in case Rich can't get to another one. So April 27th, that's the one agenda topic that we would try to focus on. And again, as Stephanie mentioned, if you have more, bring them early so we can consider them. May 18th, Great Falls. One agenda item that we have statutorily would be to address the PALA agreements that have come to the department. And so we would meet to do that at that time. And if you recall, we're going to do that regionally and then in a shorter look at the meeting. Okay. And then the second part of May that we have tentatively scheduled would be to bring some landowners to that meeting to discuss about all those issues, relationships and such that we want to hear about. The third item that I would say would be continuation of the first focus would be block, to continue that if necessary to get through it. July tentatively, I think it'd be a continuation of block if we need to be there. I mean, I would hope that in 3 solid meetings, we could really come up with something solid with block, anything that we're looking at as a group to recommend. So that would be an agenda item if it's still continuing. Otherwise, we'd start on the 2nd. And then I would imagine we'd be looking at some review from the hunter landowner stewardship program progress, and certainly some of the other hunter education issues that'll be up at that time. So those are there, and you know, we'll want to put them first for sure. And then yeah, on that July 13th, you know, trying to get around the state, you know, it'd be interesting on a lot of our parts to be up in Glasgow, if that can be coordinated. Otherwise, it might look at, you know, Miles City, but we'll address that as we get closer. Any quick questions or comments on that? Any input? Everybody good generally? And then we've got to look at our schedules. While it seems early, I know it's not early. It's everybody's got notes on every month of the year probably already. So with as much as all of you do. Okay. Any last part on that, Stephanie?
No, thank you. As you were talking, I sent a quick note to Colleen to see if it would be possible to host additional folks at the Montana City Landowner Appreciation Dinner. So she's checking with them to make sure that they have capacity, and we'll know more here on that and confirm very soon. So if you're interested in attending that landowner dinner, please reach out to me and we'll make sure to work with Colleen on that.
Did I throw a bomb in that?
What's that?
Did I throw a bomb in that?
Nope, you're all good.
I have a tent. We can put a big tent up. Okay. So with that, we can go to final comments. So we'll just go around and any final comments. Let's start with Rod.
Good meeting, informative. Again, not a lot going on besides some legislative stuff. One thing I do want to thank you for is having these Zoom calls so we don't have to travel this time of year. So very nice and much appreciated. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Rod. Dale?
Good meeting. Thought we hit a lot of topics, kind of set the stage for what's going to go on. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thanks, Dale. Mr. Lee.
I thought I was pretty, nobody could see me hold my hand up, so I wasn't near as disruptive at this meeting as I have been in the past, but thank you, it was very good.
Well, now's your chance.
I'll save it till next time.
All right. Thank you, Lee. Tierney?
Yeah, for me, it's just maybe trying to get a hold of, I guess, for our next discussions of getting a hold of some people that are in block management and maybe if they have ideas on how to make better hunts, do more of that, I guess, for me, and then get your applications in for your elk tags.
Yeah, and to Tierney's point, if you have a recommendation you'd like to put forth for that May meeting for who to invite, send it my way and we'll send it up the flagpole. I'm sure we'll have a good number to choose from. So thank you. Donna.
Excuse me, I felt it was a great meeting. I enjoyed listening to the solutions and some of the things they did at the Matador Ranch. We discussed quite a few topics, and like always, my brain is going, ooh, we still have a lot of work to do. So yeah, so good group, good meeting.
Thanks, Donna. And thanks for the notes from the MOGA meeting, because I think some of those will follow up into our next few meetings. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Rich.
Nothing, excuse me, nothing much more to add here. I thought it was a good meeting. I'm glad we were able to do it by Zoom, so could be back on the ranch. That's really helpful. And I do think that there's some good things coming ahead to discuss. I appreciate your work, Ed, and just making sure that we're kind of succinct in what what issues we cover. And I like the process of, selecting what we want to prioritize. So it's all good. Looking forward to the meetings coming ahead and moving forward. So thanks.
Thank you, Rich. Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a very good meeting. I think we got to look back a little bit. I think not so much us, but I think that the access issues for the 454 and this Matador Ranch, and these have been great accomplishments. And I think we need to let people know about them, because I think this is the direction that the PLPW is wanting to go. And we did a good job there. And I think the Fish and Game has done a good job on improving relationships. So job well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Everett?
I guess I'll just add that when we have meetings in person, I look forward to seeing everybody at our socials the night before. So if you can't make those, Ed usually buys all the beer, so just show up.
Thanks for that, Everett. Yeah, if I have to buy beer in bulk, you know what kind that's going to be. Okay, I'm going to send the bill to Sitka, and Drew will pay for it. Drew, you're next.
I'm an independent rep.
That don't get you nothing.
Yeah. Hey, nice to see some of our work from last year show up in some of these bills. So, just tip of the hat to the whole group for, putting our brains together and doing that. Thank you to FWP folks behind the scenes. There's a lot of you doing stuff that we can't see on the screen. So thank you, and looking forward to the rest of the year and the discussions.
Thanks, Drew. Cindy?
I thought it was a good meeting and I have nothing else to add. Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, Eric, I know you're way out there.
Yeah, we're way out there. I just want to say thanks for having these things via Zoom. That's so much handier than having to travel. Rod and I talked about that yesterday, and that's very much appreciated on our end, because it is a lot of travel for us. But anyway, no, nothing else. Good meeting. Look forward to seeing everybody sometime in the future.
So if we go to Miles City or Glasgow, you don't want to go there?
Miles City or Glasgow, I'd travel to either one of those.
Okay. I thought maybe. Did I miss anybody there? Council? Okay. Well, I just again like to thank all of you for your commitment and your thoughtfulness in what we do. I know it's a lot. I know so many of you are involved in many, many things for your business, your operation, other organizations. I know it. I mean, and that's why we're all here, because we will take that time to do it. So I appreciate all of you for that. Again, Colleen and Dean, thanks for that great insight into that managed hunt. I mean, that to me that's a lot of work, and I think great success. It's one of the problems that we have is how can we devote that kind of resource, because it took you guys a lot. So however that can help in other instances like that, I know there's plenty of them throughout the West, and I'm sure that continues into the East. So thanks for that presentation and the work you do. It's impressive. And to you too, Travis, for hanging there with us all day today. And I know you got plenty to do, so I appreciate you being here with us. And with that, again, just a reminder, send your needs to me, and we'll get them on to the department and try to do it in a timely way. I encourage you to participate in anything that you think is important for what we do, and we'll try to sift that in so you can get it in the right manner and timely. So I do have one last question on the meeting. So, the April, I'm I'm kind of like Everett. I like to get together with everybody. On the April 1, do you prefer Zoom or something like that? I mean, in April, we'd be tearing into some pretty big stuff and doing it for a whole day. I mean, I have a hard time getting around a day-long Zoom.
I much prefer face-to-face, but I also am respectful of those people that have jobs and livestock to take care of and everything else. But I just find it so much more meaningful if you can sit around the table and visit with each other after hours. And I just think it leads to better coalition building when you can meet in person.
Okay. Well, if anybody has feedback, we're trying to consider that to look at the other regions in the state and also represent the folks in those regions if they want to be able to come to a meeting. So Eric, you have your hand up?
Yeah, in April through August is really tough on the farm and the ranch to get away. So if I can get away for an in-person meeting, I will. If not, as long as the Zoom option's available, that's great.
Okay. Donna?
I was just wondering, are our terms up in July, or will there be any other new members at any of these meetings?
So as a reminder, there are a number of members who in July, the current term you're in, would be up. I really can't say one way or another. That'll be up to the governor's reappointment or appointment. And so that'll come. I know that's in the queue. So it'll be being looked at soon. So we all know. And yeah, it's a great question. I can't tell you that answer. I'm just like you. We're all we serve at the leisure of the governor, and yep, we'll see how that goes. Paul, did you have another?
Yeah, do we have to reapply probably then?
That'll come up. So as you know, I've talked to those of you that are in that situation, and I've communicated that up response-wise. Okay. Yeah, and if you have any other particular questions on it, feel free to give me a holler. Anything else, or are you up still, Eric? Another question, or is that the old hand?
That's the old hand still.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing further, again, I appreciate all the FWP staff being with us today. And each of you taking the time. Lee, I think you might be getting some more snow. So I hope it's not too bad. I hope it's just right, buddy, because we're all going to get it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend coming up and week ahead. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.